Welcome back to the Tech Ed Podcast. I am Matt Kirkner, your host. We are live streaming from Automate, the largest automation gathering in all of North America. It's absolutely incredible. We're in Detroit, Michigan. 25,000 people are visiting this facility over the course of 4 days. And I can tell you, I think we've seen just about all 25,000 of them at one point or another stream by the Tech Ed Podcast booth. Everybody's interested in what's going on, interested in learning about the future of technical education. That is going to be the topic of our discussion today. We are live, by the way, from the FANUC Education Pavilion. So it's an entire corridor in this show that is dedicated to the future of American manufacturing talent, advanced manufacturing talent, automation talent. There's collaborative robots, there's Delta robots, there's vision systems, there's Weld robots, there's 6-axis robots. Absolutely phenomenal opportunities. What a great time to be a student, and what a great time to talk about our students with somebody who I can tell you genuinely and personally is an absolute leader in this world of advanced manufacturing education. Josh Gamer is the Dean of Integrated Technology at Western Technical College. I've known Josh now for some 7-8 years, something like that. A wonderful individual, incredibly innovative, and I know our listeners are really going to enjoy getting to know Josh in the same way that I've enjoyed getting to know Josh. So Josh Gamer, thanks so much for being on the Tech Ed Podcast.
Thanks, Matt. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here. Western Technical College, such a leader and an innovator in the world of technical education, and I mean that genuinely. You've been so far out in front of so many different trends, and I know that effort continues to this day. But tell us, for starters, give our listeners a little bit of a flavor of the college, the region, which is absolutely beautiful, by the way, southeast or southwest Wisconsin, rather, western Wisconsin, and the industries you're serving, who are your students. Just tell us about the college a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been serving our population for over 112 years now.
Wow.
So for starters, we started with apprenticeship education, trades-based, and have really grown immensely since then. As far as our region goes, we are nestled along the Mississippi River, so It is gorgeous with the bluffs, the driftless area as it's referred to. Student population, we have 2-year associate degree students, 1-year tech diploma students, short-term certificate students, high school education, GED, just a whole array of offerings that we provide to our community. And as from an industry standpoint, I can tell you manufacturing is very well represented within our district.
Sure.
So when we look at it, we serve several hundred manufacturers.
Wow.
Some of the big ones you might recognize, Train Company from heating and cooling systems, Ashley Furniture Industries, the largest furniture manufacturer in the world, is headquartered within our district, and many, many, many more on top of that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're right about all of that. It's an absolutely beautiful area. When you talk about the bluffs right along the Mississippi River, it's almost impossible to somebody who hasn't been there to describe just that. Even taking a picture and trying to show it to them, it doesn't quite do it justice. You're driving to La Crosse. I travel over there from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and you kind of come over the hill about maybe 30 miles east of the river, and it's just this incredible, beautiful valley. And coming at it from the other side, from Minnesota, same exact thing. So you have the blessing of being in one of the most beautiful areas within the state of Wisconsin. I would say the entire Midwest and perhaps the United States. So you have that benefit. Incredible support from a lot of your different industry partners. You and I have spent time in your Integrated Technology Center and your apprenticeship programs that you built out significantly, about 2 years ago now. All kinds of really, really cool things going on there. And they're really in so many ways pushing, and you're pulling the industrial employers as they're pushing you into this world of Industry 4.0, into IIoT, in the world of smart sensors and smart devices and connectivity from the edge all the way up to the cloud and so on. I know this has been a huge passion of yours, Josh, as we look at the fourth industrial revolution. Tell us a little bit about what your students are learning as they're going through the programs.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have a multitude of offerings, right? So we have an electromechanical associate's degree. On top of that, we have mechatronics, robotic engineering technology degree, and a brand new Internet of Things integration specialist degree. So, really, if you look at all those programs, you're getting your basics from basic industrial electricity, more of your hands-on fluid power, pumps and gearboxes, mech drives, getting into your PLC programming on top of that, robotic programming, and then taking it to the integration side and connecting it with your smart sensors, smart devices, and really creating entirely automated processes by the time they're done. I will say on the IoT degree, it is one of the most unique degrees in the country.
It is.
Only a couple technical colleges actually offer it currently. And the way ours is structured is we take a solid base of electromechanical skill sets with the robotics added on top of it.
Yep.
And then to that, we add some web and software development skills. So getting into that computer programming, specifically with Python. And then on top of that, we layer on that big data piece. So data analysis, data visualization.
Right.
And really, we've got that IT OT crossover that we've been demanding for so long.
Absolutely.
We've got that in one academic program that's 2 years in length.
Absolutely. One of the things that we heard maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago when we started talking about data acquisition, data analysis, and even onto artificial intelligence and machine learning and so on, there were a lot of people that looked at us funny when we said that belonged in the technical college, right? That these are the things of PhD engineering programs, data science programs. What are you trying to do? Teaching and expecting somebody in a 2-year program to gain those types of competencies. But the truth is, as you did your research, as you understood all these different market verticals, how that same continuum from the edge to the cloud continues, whether it's in automation and manufacturing or hospitality or retail or any of these other spaces, you have that same continuum. And you're, it sounds like, completely confident that these students are going to be able to capture those competencies and really add value for the industrial employers. Am I getting that right?
Absolutely. And we talk about this particular program to our local employers. Their eyes really light up in that. And they say, we need that person. We need several of those individuals today. And they're really thinking what that future job market looks like for their employees. And that kind of almost that jack of all trades skill set as we used to define it as.
Right.
And there's a huge demand for it. Our challenge now is kind of getting the interest levels up by letting people know that these careers do exist.
Right.
They're going to be more in demand. They're very high wages. And they're really enjoyable. They're hands-on.
Yep.
You get that really heavy technical piece. And at the same time, there's that creative side because of the integration and the data analysis side. So it really can be a great and rewarding career. We just got to get the word out about it.
Absolutely. One of our last guests and right before you stepped into the podcast booth here was Robbie Kamiljanovich, who is the CEO of Aceda, which is a huge integrator. And Robbie said almost exactly the same thing. He said, we get these young people and people of all ages that are coming into our business, and what they love about what they're doing is no 2 days are the same.
Yes.
And they're working on all these different technologies, all these different applications, moving from project to project, adding value the whole way. And it's just going to be so rewarding to see these students as they're coming out of this program and going to work in the workforce. And you're right, these are going to be really high paying jobs. I mean, there's just tremendous value in being able to not just integrate the technology, but also gather the data, do some of the programming and coding. So I'm really excited to watch the future of that. Another thing that I'm excited about in the future and hopefully the not so distant future is the connected smart manufacturing system at Western Technical College. We're actually in the FANUC Education Pavilion. APT Manufacturing Solutions, who you're well familiar with, is also here. In fact, I'm looking at Tony Neiswander across the aisle right now, the CEO of APT. And so you've partnered with APT and others on this new connected smart manufacturing system. Tell our listeners how this improves your IIoT and your Industry 4.0 programs and also the learning outcomes for your automation students and others.
I think the best way to frame it is that students are going to get hands-on experience with an entire manufacturing process from order entry to packaging.
Right.
So the way it's set up is we actually have a control station that they can place the order in, and we can create multiple types of orders because there's a design change that we can create within the system. And once you enter that order and it goes out to production, the robotic system kicks into play. Tokens start moving along. Tokens get engraved with what it is that you want to have. They get packaged. They get shipped out. And all that process data is being collected that entirety of the time.
Right.
The really cool thing about the system is we have a full digital twin of that system created as well. So the hope then is to be able to, for example, have students at their high school remote into the digital twin version of this.
Yes.
Use our PLCs on campus that are connected to that network they've remoted into to do some programming and some simulation of that, and that eventually come on campus and have full access to the actual capital piece of equipment itself, right? The physical system of it. So, if you look at the different sensors that are on there, from proximity sensors, for example, barcode scanning, there's just a lot of different pieces of technology, especially the Rockwell focused, that are all fully integrated.
Yep.
And seeing that process start to finish, understanding how they're all communicating and how each piece is essential to perform for that next one to actually start its step in the process, I think you can't replicate that any other way.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Rockwell Automation, and obviously they're a great integration partner as well with FANUC and APT Manufacturing Solutions as well. You see all these convergences of different technologies, and you mentioned the digital twin. So literally having a digital version of a hard asset that exists in the cloud And I love the way that you characterize that of these students who are in high school being able to, as part of a technical education program, maybe it's a boot camp, maybe it's a coding course that they're in or another STEM class that they're in, having access to that digital twin, getting inspired around this technology, being able to experiment with it, maybe program a PLC that's impacting what's happening on the digital twin and so on. And then being able to travel to Western Technical College, see the physical manifestation of this thing that they were working on digitally, and already having a great appreciation and understanding of the different technologies that you mentioned. That's an application that, I mean, all of this is cutting edge, but being able to do that high school outreach, I think, is just another example of how Western is leading the way into the future of Industry 4.0 and IoT learning, and things that, you should be really, really proud of. What kind of feedback are you getting from your industrial employers as you talk about this vision?
Well, I want to start off by saying our faculty are outstanding, right?
Yeah,
so if it wasn't for their subject matter expertise, none of this would be possible. I'm very proud to be able to support them and to help kind of implement a shared and co-created vision of what we want to do.
And I will interject before we go on with the rest of the answer to the question. We work with a lot of college deans, and I'm certainly not insulting any of the other ones by saying this, but you have a command of this technology and an ability to explain it that I think is really, really unique. And I know it comes from some of your background before your time as the dean of an amazing program, several amazing programs, but I think that really speaks to the relationship that you have with both your faculty and your industrial employers, that you're able to speak so fluently about these technologies and talk in a way that's really simple for people to understand how you're applying them. So with that, no question that you have incredible faculty, and
Yes.
I've certainly worked with and around many of them for a long time, and I would second that motion 100%. But then, go on and tell us a little bit about the industrial employers and so on.
I think our employers are extremely satisfied, right? So for one, they all want our graduates. Our graduates, out of these programs typically have 100% placement. If they want to get a job, they have a job lined up, typically by the end of the first year of their actual 2-year degree.
Amazing.
But as far as overall feedback, we just hosted a contingent of industry members here earlier this week, actually just Monday morning.
Sure.
And they were amazed at how far we've come along, even in the last 2 years and 3 years,
Right.
and how we continue to advance in the technology that we're providing from an educational standpoint, and then the vision that we do have. So our employers stand behind us. They provide scholarships for our students. They're co-sponsors when we do grant submittals as well. They see the outcomes we're trying to achieve, and they want to be an active partner in it. And we've just, our employers really are our industry partners, and it's been fantastic. The relationship goes back and forth. I learn from them. I hope to think that they also learn from us, and then nothing else, they get great employees from us at the end.
Absolutely. And that is one of the things when I talk to people in higher education, we almost every program has its advisory boards, and the advisory boards provide tremendous information and leadership and vision about where organizations and where technology is going, so that the college can morph its programs along the way. But you mentioned something else, that it's not just you learning from them, but them learning from you, and being here at a place like Automate, seeing all these technologies. Yeah, the IoT and Industry 4.0 space is one that I believe educators, in as much as they have to listen to their industrial employers, also have to nudge them in that direction. As somebody who worked in industry for a long time,
yes,
my focus is, making sure our people are happy and productive and are doing meaningful work, making sure orders are getting out to customers, making sure yield is improving, making sure that we're cash flowing properly. I mean, those are the day in and day out focuses of somebody working in manufacturing. And sometimes it's easy to forget that there's this whole world of automation and advanced manufacturing that is cruising along at warp speed. And I think one of the things that Western does really well is bring that body of knowledge back to your employers as well. It really is a two-way street, as everything is changing in manufacturing. One of the things that I know, and you've already referenced it a little bit already, that you're really keeping your eye on, is this whole IT-OT convergence, the convergence of operations technology and information technology. In the manufacturing companies that I ran for a long time, up until 8 years ago when I stepped over to education, we had our operations team and we had our IT team, and those people wanted nothing to do with each other, right? I mean, the IT people did their stuff, and the OT people did their stuff, and it worked okay, because they didn't really, other than my computer's broken or I'm having a problem sending this email or whatever, using the software, they didn't have to cross over much. And now we're in this world where, we're inviting the IT folks out onto the shop floor, that our manufacturing equipment is increasingly connected, that it's increasingly networked, that provides a whole host of opportunities in terms of how we can share information, how we can gather information, how we can lean out processes, but also some challenges in terms of cybersecurity, network security, and so on. Now they're having to work together.
Yes, they are.
So talk a little bit about, what you're seeing in the form of IT and OT convergence, and then what we do about it in education.
Yeah, it is a fascinating area. So I just recently took on our IT programs as far as support and oversight at the college, because there is that interconnect there, and we
Sure.
want to continue to build that. So what we're seeing is that a lot of our IT departments locally still have a struggle of all of our financial assets are on one network, right? All of our employee information's on one network, and we maybe haven't taken the time to fully develop and implement a secondary network to
Sure.
the institution.
Yep.
And because of that, there's this fear, obviously, where not only can our equipment be hacked into and
Yep.
taken over remotely, but
Right.
people can have access to all of our critical
Sure.
information, that critical infrastructure. So we're starting to see more discussion of putting in secondary networks. Like Western has 2 networks ourselves. We have a student network that we can do all this stuff on, and an industrial network is part of that. And then we have our traditional operating network for the institution.
Sure.
So we're really set up to manage that and to help that piece. Now, where I'm excited about is we're in the process of creating an industrial network throughout our facility that we take all of our robots, all of our PLCs, all of our CNC machines, our connectable welding equipment that we do have, and creating that live IoT network where all of our equipment is going to be up and managed through the network. I'm going to know, mean time between failure of equipment,
Yeah.
overall equipment effectiveness, just the general decision-making things I need from an operation standpoint, I'm going to have access to.
Right.
But the cool thing is we can then share that with students, and our maintenance technicians, as they're coming through the program, they can see, yeah, if I'm managing an asset, this is everything it can include, and this is how I can be efficient about it. And from an IT standpoint, they can see from instructors and students as well, we have to collect this. This is how we're using it.
Yep.
And then having those collaborative conversations on how do we secure it, right?
Absolutely.
How do we make sure that it is secure, but we're not limiting ourselves? Because if you look at some of the newest technology coming today, if it's not networked, you can't take advantage of the capabilities,
Right.
mostly of the equipment or of the software systems that help make that equipment more efficient. So it's really an essential piece.
Absolutely. Well, and it's so wise. I mean, and it's so innovative. And you start thinking about having this separate industrial network with all of your equipment that's networked together. It allows for so many different things. First of all, it becomes an awesome showcase for your industrial employers, right? So they can come in and see how all this networking is working, how we connect all these systems, and then how we air gap them so that we're not at risk of bad actors getting into our equipment or for somebody. And usually it's not even somebody in our internal to our organizations that did something wrong on purpose. It's just that they just didn't know what they didn't know, and all of a sudden connected something to the cloud that they weren't aware they were doing it, and now somebody potentially has access back into that equipment. So you've got this showcase for your employers, so they can look at that and say, "Oh my goodness, this is how we could do this in our facility," because that is a big concern when people look at deploying IoT is the cybersecurity, and so you've got that. But then your opportunity for your students to learn on that exact system
Exactly.
and to make mistakes on it, right? I mean, if this is all linked in the entire operations of the college is relying on the network, and a student is over here messing around on something, you certainly don't want to put the whole network at risk because somebody's experimenting with some new application. It allows you to do that as well. That's really, really forward thinking. Talk to me a little bit about how your IT students then will engage with this.
So a couple different ways. So our web and software students, the discussions we're having thus far with our faculty there is what type of programs do we need to write to extract some of this data,
Yep.
right? So there's all kinds of platforms out there you can utilize, and some are open source, open code, which makes it much easier, but there's always going to be a programming piece for some one-offs.
Right.
So we're looking at ways to engage our students in that. On the cybersecurity side, it's setting up that network, creating the security protocols for it, kind of deploying that, and then managing that network as
Sure.
well. That can be part of that student learning experience. And it could be the fact that we can create false attacks on that network
Yep.
and have our students monitor for that, right? And
Sure.
have kind of that cyber range concept, as it's referred to, and bring that experience to students. So I think every step along the way, there can be great student involvement in that.
Right.
And that's what makes it really exciting.
Absolutely. And makes it really appealing to employers as well on the IT side. So, I spent all my time on the advanced manufacturing side thinking about electromechanical technicians and automation technicians and robot programmers and, all these types of jobs. But on the IT side, if I'm an IT student that can go to an employer like a Trane, like an Ashley Furniture and say, yes, I've got this experience on all the traditional IT learning, but I also have this tremendous experience on how we deploy that and how we keep advanced manufacturing technology, know-how, IP safe, how we network all these systems on the shop floor. That's got to be a tremendously in demand individual as well. Is that what you're hearing?
Exactly it. That's exactly it, Matt.
Yeah. So it's going to be a really, really exciting time to watch that whole project roll out. And a couple more questions for you, Josh. I know our producer's letting me know that we're getting a little short on time, and that's the time here goes so fast. But we do have enough time to squeeze in another couple questions.
Yeah.
One of the things I'd be interested in is what else is on the horizon for Western, and as much as you're innovating and a lot of these things that you're talking about are in implementation right now and will come live over the course of the summer and into the fall, as you look out the next 2, 3, 4 years, what are you working on?
So one of the big things we're doing is we're launching a new data analyst or data analytics program.
Okay.
That will come live fall of 24. So we're just in the process of building that now and recruiting the faculty member who will manage that program. By the way, that one's very much connected again to that IoT program and all that data that we're collecting ourselves. Really looking at short-term credential offerings as well.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we're seeing is that shift in consumer behavior between willingness to jump into a 2-year or a 1-year program right away and trying to figure out where can we break this down into more of that micro-credential level that still will ladder up into those larger degrees as they want to continue their career and their degree path. So that'll be a big project we're working on the next couple of years. And honestly, college-wide, we're doing something great with guided pathways right now.
Mm-hmm.
So using that philosophy to make sure that we get students advised properly on the front end, get them on that path, keep them on the path to graduation, and making sure we're being inclusive of everybody in that process.
Awesome.
And that in itself is a huge effort in converting every one of our courses to a mini 7-week course. So less cognitive load for students at one time. They can spread that credit load over 2 subterms within a term.
Okay.
So I think that's enough to keep us plenty busy over the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, and innovating on a number of different levels, and I love all those. Certainly the promotion of credentials and micro credentials and stackable credentials, and providing whether it's somebody in the workforce that may be coming back to the college through your business and industry side to upskill themselves, giving your students alongside amazing technical diplomas and associate degrees, third-party credentials that can be stackable, maybe lead to opportunities with other educational institutions as they complete their associate's degrees and consider opportunities for bachelor's degrees and so on. That's really important. The whole focus on data analytics, I mean, that's where all this is going, and that project is absolutely fascinating. And then finally thinking a little bit about the student experience, the pathways, how we create more options for students, how we continue to focus on competencies and how we continue to focus on making sure that we're as flexible as we need to be in order to ensure that we're meeting them where they are. I mean, a lot of folks don't recognize that the average community or technical college student isn't necessarily somebody who's walking out of a high school and continuing their education. There are certainly plenty of those, but you also have a lot of folks that may be coming back after a 4-year degree that led to a career that they found out they didn't have a passion for. Unfortunately, many times with a lot more debt than they would have needed to take on, but that's probably a topic for another podcast. And then the whole idea of people that are already in the workforce coming back and upskilling, because we really, as this technology changes, and Automate is a perfect example of it, the skills that somebody had 10, 20 years ago are not relevant, or at least completely relevant to the world of advanced manufacturing. So all those different opportunities to plug in with your students and to provide those pathways. And I really like the way that you're innovating on the education side, not just the technology side, but the model of education, which is another form of really exciting integration. Other exciting trends that we see here at Automate, just phenomenal, the different technologies that we've walked around and looked at. And I know you spent some time seeing a number of different emerging technologies here. Is there something you've seen here or some other trend that you want to reference?
Yeah, I was at the keynote this morning with Siemens, and I think they hit on it the best in one of their portions, and that is bringing AI into the manufacturing sector and what it looks like.
Okay.
And I was having a discussion with some students here last week. I'm teaching a course on lean principles right now at Western.
Yep. And so not just a dean, but also in the classroom, which is awesome.
Try to stay connected.
Yeah, I love that.
And when I was talking to the students, they're talking, well, what's the difference between lean and Industry 4.0, and is one better? And the way I told them is, the way I like to frame it is, lean's been a building block that was essential for 4.0 to take off, right? So you don't want to automate waste. You want to streamline your processes, get rid of waste before you bring in automation. Otherwise, you're still just automating waste, which is wasteful.
For sure.
I look at the AI the same with kind of Industry 4.0. If you want to harness the power AI has, then we have to be looking at that connectability. We have to be looking at a data management plan,
Right.
Collecting all that data and really being prepared to allow AI then to help guide us in that.
Absolutely.
I read an article recently that kind of referred to AI as the invisible maintenance technician on the floor, kind of the omnipresent maintenance technician that's going to help alert us when something's going down, right?
Absolutely.
Or where we can have a more efficient process. But again, much like Lean is to 4.0, without 4.0 practices and that interconnectability, AI is not going to be able to, we can't harness that.
Exactly.
So it's an evolution as to how we're looking at it,
That's
not
a great
a
way of looking
this
at
is
it.
better than that.
I love that. And we can't, artificial intelligence can't analyze data unless we acquire the data. We're not going to acquire the data unless we have smart sensors and smart devices on the edge, gathering the data, discerning what's marketable or what's actionable and what isn't, and then making sure that we're processing that actionable data. So that's a really, really cool way of looking at it. I tell it the intersection between Lean and Industry 4.0 is something that's always fascinated me as well. And I almost look at Industry 4.0 as a Lean tool. So it's like if the goal of Lean is to make our overall operations more efficient, you're right. First of all, it doesn't do any sense to automate an inefficient operation. Let's optimize the operation and then use automation to make it even more efficient. But if we can look at Industry 4.0 and AI as tools that we can use to drive waste out of manufacturing, the beneficiaries are the people that get to work in the amazing careers, the company ownership and investors that are going to see a higher return, those of us who are consumers that are going to see lower cost products because they were produced with less waste. Certainly sustainability and environmentally, there's all kinds of benefits as well. So there's so much good that comes out of something like this here at Automate. And I think that trend that you referenced there on AI and really thinking about it the right way is exactly the right way to think about this. So we have one final question for you, Josh Gamer, as we're wrapping up our time here at Automate. It's a question I love asking our guests here on the Tech Ed podcast. We get some really, really fascinating answers, and frankly, answers that I've learned quite a bit from. But long before the 8 years ago when you and I were sitting together in your office for the first time and both getting started in our next career steps, as I recall, going way back to, and I don't mean way back because it's not as far back as I would have to go, but back to when you were a 15-year-old sophomore in high school, just growing up, just if you could go back and give that young man one more piece of advice, what would it be?
Gosh, that's a deep question, Matt.
On purpose.
I think two things, right? Because I always think about what do I wish I had known sooner in life, or my thought process, how has it changed? So one, I would tell myself not to discount the trades for careers, right?
Yeah.
To really understand them, take the time to get to know all the opportunities. Because I know I would have excelled in some of those careers, and I know I would have loved doing it. And I just never considered it. So definitely telling myself to explore that more early on.
Okay.
The other piece is kind of a drastic shift, difference, I guess, from a focal point. But I would say not to always rely on the experts, right? There are experts, they're out there, but work to become that expert yourself, like a thought leader. All a thought leader is someone who has a passion for something, spends a lot of time learning about it, questioning it, and then coming up with their own analysis of what that means, and then providing insights into what we can expect moving forward.
Absolutely.
And that is such a fun thing that I found in my job as an academic dean, is just kind of morphing into that. And I never would have had the confidence back at that point. I never would have thought I could have been that person either.
Sure.
So just believing in yourself, and all the experts are normal people too. Right.
Absolutely.
So it just, they decided to focus on this. They had a passion for it and they pursued it. So I'm glad I'm finally in that role right now. And, I wish I had thought of that a little bit sooner in life.
Yeah, absolutely. We used to joke that an expert is somebody who knows more and more about less and less until they know everything about nothing. But the truth is that you don't. I mean, being an expert on something isn't magic, right? It's taking an interest the way you have in IoT and smart technology and Industry 4.0 and so many other things. And you've studied it like crazy, and I know you have, and you're here at Automate because you want to learn about emerging technologies. And I know this isn't the only venue you do that at, but it's an important one. And then taking all that knowledge, distilling it, and then figuring out how it applies to specific areas, and in your case, lots of areas, but specifically how we educate the next generation of the American workforce, which I know is a huge passion for yours. It's what you do. Yeah. This isn't just a job for you. It's really a calling, and you live it out every day. I appreciate the way you do your work. Appreciate you coming on the Tech Ed podcast to share the way you do that work with our audience, Josh. And it's always so much fun to be with you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Likewise. I appreciate it, Matt. Thank you.